Zvika Eurovision fans, I am Euan. Joining me today is the lovely Rory, and today we are going to be discussing, as you can probably see from the video, Eurovizija 2025. We already discussed pre-show and before the final, but this time we're discussing after the final. Rory, are you excited?
Uh, sure. Yeah,
You,
great.
you can tell he was forced to do this one.
What do you mean? I love Lithuania. No, I do love Lithuania. It's very good.
So, after a mammoth 5 weeks of some, well, if you've seen our previous videos, absolutely terrible quality semi-finals, we ended up with a final of 12 songs. But very interestingly, before the final, they did actually announce that two songs were going to be joining the lineup. That would be Black Biceps of Vaisip Manreik and Liepa's Armiletum, which proved to be very interesting for them because Liepa ended up getting into the super final and Black Biceps did come fourth because the reason doing so is they were the first and third highest semi-finalist with their televote, which was a very long-winded way of saying they got a lot of votes compared to a hell of a lot of the other songs that were in this show. So let's just start off with the quality of the songs. What did you think of the final lineup?
Ah, Okay, so I was not fully paying attention to Eurovizija.LT, mostly for the majority of the national final season, mostly because it just goes on a little bit too long for me. But I did tune in to like the last kind of semi-finals and then the overall final itself. And I mean, the final itself, I think, was actually quite good. There was a good number of songs that were very different in terms of their genre. You had a lot of kind of like R&B kind of things. You had very kind of dark and very like intense electronica. You had kind of rock as well in there too, but then you also had a little bit of humor in there too, and as well as just sort of having generic kind of normal kind of pop, but then you also had art pop as well. So it was nice that there was a lot of different variety for people to kind of get their teeth into. I do think, again, Lithuania is just going to Lithuania in the way of just like sticking two people in at the last minute. It's like, oh well, that you just kind of have to accept that kind of messiness as part of the process in Lithuania. Uh, but I think in terms for the actual songs that were in the final, I think that was pretty much most of them were all the ones that I would have probably put in there, maybe with a couple of exceptions. But um, Lithuania is clearly on a good trajectory of stuff, and they're kind of really discovering what their identity is within Eurovision at the minute, which is really nice to see, actually.
Mhm. And just to say before I start talking about my favorites, I did actually just completely remember that I have a Lithuanian flag just sitting on my desk. I thought, why not fly this during right now?
Little up,
But that will be
little
I will need
up.
to put this down because I'm mad at Lithuania.
Well, no, but Fuse Mark though, we love Fuse Mark.
We do love Fuse Mark, which probably says a lot about us. Uh,
No, it says more about them than it does about us, I think.
yeah, so I've like this is definitely the weakest final I've ever witnessed Lithuania doing. But I won't talk ad nauseam about that. It was great the diversity, like you've said. I am happy that we're getting a lot more of this sort of darker electro stuff because one thing that I think Lithuania really does shine out compared to other European music industries is how good at electronica they are,
Yeah.
and they don't really showcase that enough. You get some dancey numbers, something like this, but there's not really just fully going into it. So that's why I was really happy with when this was just featured here, especially with like sort of like Petunia with Isaldo Ma. And I know that you're not a fan of Liepa, but Anmi Letum, just having that in the show and coming third, fantastic. Um, yeah. What do you think of the show itself?
Okay. Well, I mean, the fact that they are able to pretty much sell out the massive arena in Konus, I think is fantastic. I think it looked really, really good on TV. The stage itself looked really slick and
Mhm.
really polished. I think that was really good.
I do just
Um,
need to throw in there that is one of the most amazing arenas I have ever been in. it is just the atmosphere is amazing. And if you ever get a chance to go to a concert, you should all go there.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like I need to start ranking the arenas that I'm in now as a result of that. So maybe I'll go to it and see how
That is the
see.
most aggressively Eurofan behavior I think I've heard on a video.
Welcome to that Eurovision site. No, I think I think it was really good in terms for the show. I mean, there's always something about Lithuania. It's just the way that the show is done. It just feels like they're trying to be really professional about it, but then there's also this kind of massive chaos thing that's happening behind the scenes, and I don't know how to like describe it, but I feel like it's just a perfect mix for them.
Mhm.
You know, you can see that they're like they've perfectly all the hosts they've perfectly rehearsed their lines, and they're like, you know, delivering it in the way that they think that it's going to do, and then something will just go wrong off stage, and just you've just got to just sit there and just
Just
enjoy
thinking
the
back to the
mess.
previous year when they announced the close of the votes very early, but they hadn't let the super finalists know, and then the RUP were just, yeah, you're not winning, and they're just like not prepared to know that they've
I
not won.
I just don't understand. Like I love Lithuania for that chaos because we don't get that much of that anymore in the
Mm.
Eurovision world. And I think, you know, we need to cling on to it as much as we possibly
And
can.
when we do, it's
Um
not like slick chaos. It's messy. It's like San Marino or Moldova. It's just like
yeah,
complete mess. Well, this is like
hit
there's
in
at
the
least
wall.
an air. There's the air of professionalism to this chaos.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a really good show. Um, I do I would kind of like it if Lithuania like I do think it did go on a little bit too long, but we've kind of always said that about Eurovizija or La Banda Myšnojo or Eurovizija Dainos Nacionala Tranka. I think you're starting to get me onto saying it properly like that now. So well done. I think it does go on. You know, like there was a point where I literally had to leave the stream so I could basically start live tweeting San Marino, not San Marino, San Remo even. Same thing. Um, like
Digital Italia.
so I think it was really good, but then also at the same time, like I would like it to be just a little bit more compact. Why do we need to get a half hour set to the interval act? I don't know. But maybe I don't know, just as a way to try and pay the bills, basically. Overall, though, I think again the quality of the show was great. I can't say that Lithuania isn't putting on like a terrible show because they're not. You know, they really are stepping up and they're like building the show into a nice behemoth. It just depends on what songs are actually competing in it. You know, but that can be changed every single year. So
Yeah, I did think it was funny that the songs ended, like the last songs were finished playing as the show was meant to end. But there wasn't really much faffing between the shows. So it was like it's sort of like how did they think that this was going to end? There must have been some problem with like how they put it on the schedule.
yeah,
Um, but I think what you're saying is like the fact that you're getting this fun, chaotic but professional atmosphere. It's testament to how good it is live
yeah.
compared to the semi-finals, which are all pre-recorded, and they just kind of feel a bit meh.
The semifinals
They just
definitely.
feel flat, but you're not getting that in the final, and it's the same with all of like these live finals. They're great, they're fun and energetic, and it just shows that they really could do something a lot better with doing it
Yeah.
live because they're the only ones that do it other than San Marino, but I mean that's
Yeah, but
something
when you have
intuitive.
like 220 acts competing in semifinals, like to do that live would be chaos.
Yeah,
More
so
chaos than
I
necessary.
yeah, it's just showcasing that they really could do it. And I liked the interval acts.
Hmm.
I thought it was the perfect amount of time, but the show started a bit too late. I think for if you're going to do something that long, it needs to be something a bit earlier, like say Ukraine. Um, I did love though that random like oh what's the word like super group of the four of them just all singing the
Uh,
random songs just came out of nowhere.
chaos. I just didn't. You just never see that kind of stuff coming, and then
Mm,
when you actually get to it, you're like, wait, what? Why? Like, this is where you reach peak level of Eurofandomness. Like, you're just sat here watching a national final in a language that you do not understand, and you're just watching this bizarre, like, performance, and you're just like, okay,
Yeah,
this is where we're
because
at now.
it was more, but they also didn't and like actually say so. If you're Lithuanian watching this, you know exactly what's going on. But they know that we're not watching, and they still give us no information because they like you get Momenko giving us the shout out in the shows like, "Hey, thank you for choosing watching us," like for all the international fans and all that. But it was then that supergroup because it was like Gabriel Vagelis, Monica Maria.
Yeah.
There was another woman.
Uh, Numbenko.
Oh no, yeah, sorry, it was Nomenko. And then there was a fourth man. It's like, who is this man? And no one knew who he was, but Lithuanians will have known. But there was not even like a little thing at the bottom of the screen saying who it was. Annoyingly, I did eventually find out who it was, and I already listened to him,
But
which
that was like
was
hours out. Like you had gone like on a massive look for this. It was like genuinely like Sherlock Holmes, you
it's
know.
just the fact that no one knew who he was.
He's got on. He just managed to blag his way into the group. Why not?
Yeah.
You know, it's great.
Yeah, so I just think that like what you're saying, the little bit of chaos, like you have no idea what is coming because they don't it's not like the Italy with their Scaletta or
Yeah,
Sweden with their like here's like every all of the press knowing exactly what's happening because they're seeing 5 million rehearsals. It's just there. It's just take it as it is. We're going for
yeah,
fun chaos and you will have a fun evening.
yeah.
But it may be a bit of a less fun. What do you think of the results?
Okay.
Let's start with the first round.
Okay. From the first round, I'm not gonna lie. I was very shocked to see that Liepa had managed to make it into the top
Hmm.
three. I don't. I did not understand that song for me. Um. So if it was out of any of the two, like either of those two that managed to get in, I would have preferred Black Biceps or Bitceps, as they would have preferred to say in Lithuanian. I would have preferred that to have made it in because it had a very like Majule vibe to it. And Majule is from the Atranka back in 2019.
Antikvartir
Um,
and I cannot say the last two words.
Antikvarinas Dentisara or something like that. I don't know. I can't
Mhm.
do the second one. But anyway, it had a certain level of that. And I did like that. I wanted something like that. I'm glad it managed to get so high in the televote. Um, Tavo Akys, I mean, it was very common knowledge that this was very popular. I wasn't that big of a fan of it, but I understood why it managed to get into the super final, should I say. I was kind of sad with some of the other results. I was saying to you and before we started recording this that four songs I believe should have done better than what they did. And Black Biceps, Petunia, Amoralu, and Anyanya, all of those I think did really, really like should have done a lot better than what they did. Particularly Freedom. I did really like that song, and I think that would have just really lent into this kind of dark electronica vibe that
Yeah.
Lithuania's really been going for at the minute. But then
I
when we
just
get
don't
to the,
understand how Petunia came eighth.
yeah, when she was like one of the fan favorites, like
Mm.
it really, really shows though that like the results in semifinals do not really give a full idea of what the results could be in the final, which is kind of nice that
Because
it gets
there's
to be
so
done.
few people actually vote in the semi-finals that it is just you end up with something completely wild in the final.
Yeah,
Because there it's like 10 times as many votes when compared to like some other countries where it's nowhere near to that degree of like difference. This
yeah,
year though there was also I think there were some issues during the voting. Um, there was dramatically less, like I think it was like a quarter of the amount of votes that they got compared to the previous year.
wow.
Um, because you're seeing like people were qualifying with 25,000 votes last year, while this time they were qualifying to the super final with 6,000 votes. So
Kind of says it all,
quite
doesn't it?
yeah, quite a bit of difference. I mean, I knew that Katarsis were going to qualify. Um, I didn't think that Liepa was going to do it because she was on third. I was convinced it was going to be Petunia.
Yeah.
I just don't understand where how that did
What
so
went
badly.
wrong? Yeah. Well, I mean, she got 4 points from the jury, and she actually got more points than she did from the jury than she did from the televote.
Mm.
Which is still kind of surprising to be honest, because I still think she had a very intriguing performance, and I don't really understand, given that she was such like a fan favorite and someone that was being talked about as a potential winner,
Yeah.
that she crashed out like that. It did seem like it was really kind of out of nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
But then you bring in, for example, you know, Leon Checa or Alan Chico, uh, who was someone who no one was predicting to do well, and then all of a sudden, like when you get to the final, he's finished in second place, and like it's you can't you just cannot predict how people will vote in these kind of situations, you know.
And I still don't really get where that came from. Like, I do not get that song at all.
I never understood it. I'm glad that it was in the national selection, but I
Mhm.
don't think it should have been that close to winning
Yeah, because I
because
mean,
it
it
was
was
only
only 4,000. Yeah,
4,000 votes off winning.
yeah. Um, it was a very good polished production. It was like a polished chaos. The actual production though of the songs this year in the final were so good. I was pleasantly surprised. I was a bit annoyed that Noi changed the staging though, because it was naff, but it was fun.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean,
just
I absolutely despise that song. So I mean, yeah, you're
it
asking
wasn't
the wrong
exactly ranked
person.
high on mine because Kittens thinks the only person actually seems to like that song. Um,
How does it feel to be in the minority?
yeah, I do think though that the structure of like a non-proportional vote, it's just not working because they do the jury points. So for instance, Tavo Akys got 120 jury points. And Milton got 79 and Dorobe got 113. And then that's just converted into the 12, 10, and 7 points.
Yeah,
It this doesn't work a non-proportional one in the way that this is thing and the non-proportional televote.
yeah,
Like Liepa getting 7 points while having 4,000 more votes than Goya, who got 5 points.
that's crazy.
The whole thing it doesn't work, and they really need to reform this.
But I
But
think that's a problem across all national selections
I
because there's
think
other national
it's
selections.
worse in Lithuania because you have the five semi-finals,
Yeah,
and this is the fact that your first and third highest televote across the 38 songs. Was it 38 songs? I'm probably wrong there. Uh, didn't qualify.
yeah.
And they only had to be brought in because of this special extra round. Yeah, we can't rely on that. But yeah, like moving on to like actual Tavo Akis stuff. So I am a fan of it. It is my sixth place. How do you think that this is going to do at Eurovision itself?
Okay, so for me, this song doesn't hit in the same way that it does for other people.
Mhm.
I think it's good to have. I think it definitely stands out, and you know we're recording this the day after that the running order was released, and you know they're pretty much closing the first half, pretty much, or they're definitely towards the end of the first half anyway, on Thursday. So they're definitely going to be able to stand out on that. I just I don't know whether or not the kind of that level of darkness is going to work for Lithuania. I think it's nice and it like, you know, to have, but I struggle to think who it's really going to appeal to because I think they're going to need to find ways to like basically make a way for it to appeal to a wider audience.
Mm. For
And
context, this is between, for those who are maybe not fully au fait with the running order, this is performing eighth between Greece and Malta.
Yeah. So, you know, you have Greece, for example, a dramatic ballad, you know, sung really well, you know, and this kind of has a beat to it and this kind of level. And then you have on the other side of it, you have Serving from Malta. That is a girly bop to within all sense of the word. And in between that, you have like a mixed gender band that are very much like going down the kind of the sad feel, if you
Mm.
know what I mean. And it does work, and like within the context of the running order. But I just when you have those two songs either side of it, I could see it struggling. You know.
I because with this song though, this it doesn't appeal to you and it doesn't appeal to most people, but the people that this will appeal to, it will appeal to in an amazing way.
Yeah.
And there's
I
not
mean,
really
already in this site, already. I mean, it's one person's winner, and it's like in the top 10 for at least another like two or three.
Yeah, I
So,
mean it's the top five for quite a few. So yeah, it has its audience, and with 100% televote, it's better for it because you're just trying to find that niche and that niche that will vote. Also, we do need to address the fact the elephant in the room. This is a semi-final that has Latvia, Ireland, and the UK. Let's face it, it's guaranteed 30. Lithuania is
oh,
guaranteed 36 points because the
yeah,
diaspora comes out in force.
yeah.
Because I remember it was, I want to say ESC Insight that did this. I may be wrong, where they kind of worked out how many points you need. It's something like 47 points to qualify. Is sort of
Wow.
like realistically what you need. I may be completely wrong. If I am wrong,
Well,
please but
if it
please,
is, shout out to
yeah,
ESC
shouts
Insight.
them. If it's not, I'm very sorry for shouting you out, but also you are amazing as well. But still, yeah, it's something like 40, 45, 47 points that you actually need to qualify,
Yeah,
realistically. You've got 36 guaranteed there.
I do think it will qualify. I
Yeah,
do think it
it's I
will do
think
that. It
it's like
stands out
solidly going
enough
through.
to do that. But I think when you factor in a final that will include juries that are not going like they will mark you down if you don't have like a full blown vision of things. And like for example, like I mean I'm clutching at straws here, for example, but I'm looking at ones like Ireland last year, right? With Bambi, it was a kind of a similar feel, a little bit, and it was very polarizing. Like a lot of people didn't really buy into it, and I do wonder if Lithuania could struggle in a similar sense to that. I think they'll still do well with the televote, regardless, because it there is this kind of dark kind of feel to it that is kind of becoming a lot more popular just in general in music nowadays. But for juries that will be kind of looking at the whole package, they'll be looking at the lighting, the camera work, the outfits and all this kind of stuff. I think it's a little alienating at times.
Yeah,
So I
I
want it to
I
do well, but I think
I
it
think it also is very determined of how dark the arena can go.
yeah.
Because if they're trying to go really dark and it's still very bright and you can see people's faces in the crowd, which sometimes some of the stages have done, it's probably going to dramatically draw away from it. But when you also consider what like in the semi-final, the dark songs, there's Dobrodošli.
Yeah.
I mean, Astromata technically is, but it kind of isn't unless you actually know the lyrics.
Well,
It's
that's
not
true, but it
present. It's
has a
not
feel that it
unless
could
they
be
really
dark.
go for, like they're really lean into the darkness of the lyrics. Realistically, the only other thing is Dobrodošli, which unfortunately is not going to qualify because it's on second. From the other semi-final, there's not really a lot of emotionally dark songs that are going to go in. So I do think because maybe the other heavy thing is Slovenia, which I think is probably not going in. Albania, again, it doesn't really lean into too much of that. So there is going to be a market for there's not anything really sad and
Yeah.
dark. And I think that could help it. I think it's probably not going to be top 10.
No.
But I think it could its range really is like that sort of 12th to 20th for me, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I think I would probably agree with that. I would maybe go a little bit more specific. I'd maybe sort of say like maybe 15th to 20th more so. I don't know if I just when you consider the fact that everyone thought Luke Telk was going to do really well and then it finished what 16th or 17th or
Yeah.
something like
Although I
that.
feel like Luke Talk was also the it where it performed in that show, it needed a really good running order. And I don't necessarily think Lithuania needs that this year.
Hmm. Okay. Well, it could be that, I hope I always want countries to do better than they probably will get, but
Mm.
I think with the way that it can be, it might just seem a little like it can go either way. And I guess the whole point of your like of a song like this at Eurovision is that it will polarize people, but those who will really love it. So I think it will do well in the televote. Juries, I think it will struggle with. So that's why I think it'll probably get more of a like a mid-table, top of the right hand like side of the scoreboard. I think that's probably where it'll end up. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say that is a possibility. It's very difficult because there's so much televote this year and there's not enough jury
Hmm.
that you something that is traditionally not a jury song like this might be getting a cheeky like a load of ones or twos and elevate it up. That's why I'm sort of thinking that the range might be a bit higher.
Yeah. I mean, I'm ready to be positively
Mm.
surprised for that, to be honest,
I
because
just
Lithuania
then
deserves
keeping
a good place.
this qualification streak, which they're in the longest they've ever had, which is wild given how little there is actually like of qualifications that actually is to make them in the longest in there. But yeah, I'm just happy with this. So yeah, have you got any final thoughts on Lithuania this year?
uh, Thin down the goddamn selection, please, because 45 or well between 40 and 45 songs, it's ridiculous. You know, you'll start ending up heading towards San Marino territory if you're not careful.
Hmm.
Um
I
so
said
yeah.
38 earlier. It's 45. That was very wrong of me.
Come on, we are an esteemed Eurovision site with all of the official news and figures. You know, we cannot get this wrong. We're losing our trusted integrity. No,
We
it's fine.
only spread of disinformation sometimes.
Only a little bit as a treat. Um, but yeah, I think overall, if it's just slimmed down a little bit, then the quality can be properly like fed into for all of these songs, and it makes it more competitive. Then I would say, because then you're not just chucking anyone in, you know. And I'm not saying that like loads of all of these people weren't good. I mean, you know, it's very clear to see that all of them could deliver a really strong performance, but I just think it's worth quality over quantity sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, make it a little bit thinner in terms of the quantity, and then you can only really go up from there. I'm ready for a Lithuanian win. I think it is possible in the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it definitely feels like they can do this.
They just have to
They could also
push a
just have
little
like
bit
a
more.
oopsie we've won sort of things that you do sometimes have, although less in the last
The
few years.
Portugal
But like,
approach.
yeah, just it comes
It's
out of
great.
literally nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, yeah, completely restructure the show because it's not working. But also like promote more Lithuanian songs because the entire super final was in Lithuanian, and that's something to
But
really
that's
commend.
really good. Yeah.
Especially because Lithuania has very much shied away from the language.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we're always wanting languages in Eurovision. I think that is all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rory. So we'll be coming out with some more post national final retrospective. We also got our discussions of like the entire selections because we're coming up to pre-party season, so we'll be at present at some of those, getting you interviews and content from there, as well as live from Basel. So thank you so much, Rory. If you want to continue listening to us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, Tumblr, and all of your other favorite social media sites, as well as Instagram. That was it. That was the last one. We do
Very
also
well
have our
done.
podcast, so we were as well discussing contemporary things. We also do deep dives into older things and some niche topics on the contest as well. You can follow us that on Spotify, Apple Music, and any of your other streaming platforms, as well as on our website itself. Thank you for joining me again, Rory, and it's been
Thank you
lovely
very
chatting to you.
much.
We will see you again.
See you
Bye.
later.